I literally picked out my engagement ring yesterday. Will I even get to wear it?
This will affect you if you're in a queer relationship.
How does it feel to have voted for your own demise like an absolute fucking moron?
Today is a day that ends in Y, so woke people on the internet are panicking for no reason. We're going to break down the latest hysteria that's gripping LGBT TikTok and so much more on today's episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast, my daily show where I take on the craziest ideas from across our politics, our media, and the internet, all from an independent perspective. Up first, like I mentioned, we've got to talk about a really disturbing trend going around on TikTok where people seem to be panicking, particularly people within the LGBT community, based on some news that is quite literally not real, didn't happen, and isn't a thing. Many people, and just viral video after viral video, seems very concerned and is spreading a claim that the Supreme Court has decided to rehear the case that declared gay marriage the law of the land nationwide, Obergefell v. Hodges. Video after video suggested that the Supreme Court is revisiting this and showed various gay and lesbian people in different sad situations with kind of sad music. Here's a compilation of TikToks. I'll have to replace the music for copyright, but sad pop songs were played over these videos in the background. So there's just one problem. This literally did not happen. The Supreme Court hasn't agreed to rehear Obergefell v. Hodges. Nothing of the sort has taken place. Now, what did happen that seems to be prompting a lot of this hysteria and confusion? Well, as The Hill reports, the Idaho House, so one part of the Idaho state legislature, has called on the Supreme Court to undo their same-sex marriage ruling. The Idaho House passed a Republican-backed resolution on Monday urging the Supreme Court to reconsider the legality of same-sex marriage. The Hill reports, all of Idaho's Democratic House members opposed the non-binding resolution, as did 15 Republicans. It passed 46 to 24. But did you notice the key word there? Non-binding. This is a resolution that has no binding impact, no legal authority. It's simply a statement of hope. Like, maybe we think they should do this. It has no legal or legislative impact whatsoever. It's not a case the Supreme Court could agree to hear challenging Obergefell. It's just a giant Republican virtue signal. And it hasn't even passed out of Idaho's full legislature yet, just one branch, just the House. It hasn't passed the Senate. But again, even if it does, it literally doesn't matter. I reached out to a couple legal experts I know well and asked them if this has any weight, and one of them just replied, 0 in all caps. Yet these major TikTok influencers have put these videos out to millions of people acting like gay marriage is about to go the way of the dodo bird. Here's one of those videos.
So that Idaho bill that everyone said would not go anywhere, and it was just a scare tactic trying to roll back LGBTQ marriages. It made it. I literally picked out my engagement ring yesterday. Will I even get to wear it? I'm so mad. I just want to marry my girlfriend. That's it. I just want to marry my girlfriend, wear my pretty ring.
There are so many problems with this, I hardly know where to begin. First, girl, I highly doubt you live in Idaho. Second, it didn't pass. It didn't even pass the full legislature. It just passed the House, not the Senate. And two, it's not really a bill. It's a non-binding resolution that has no impact, no legal authority, and changes absolutely nothing. Yet you're out here acting in front of millions of people online like your marriage is on the ropes and about to be taken away from you by the government. That's just not a thing. It's just not happening. Let's talk about the Supreme Court math here for a minute. So for context, guys, to agree to hear a case, you need 4 votes, and to make a majority decision, you need 5 votes of the 9-person Supreme Court. So for the Supreme Court to even agree to hear a challenge on gay marriage, you would need 4 people interested in doing so. Which, to be clear, again, these people are all acting like they've already agreed to hear it. that hasn't happened. But are there 4 votes to hear such a challenge, let alone 5 to overturn gay marriage nationwide? Let's do the math. There are 3 liberal justices on the Supreme Court, so we can just take them out of the equation. They're definitely going to support keeping gay marriage, so we're left with 6. One of those 6 is Chief Justice John Roberts, who's best described as an institutionalist. He doesn't like to rock the boat, he doesn't like to overturn long-standing precedent, and there's really no way he's going to want to overturn something that so many people rely on and that is established and settled law, like gay marriage. There's also Brett Kavanaugh, who, in their decision overturning Roe v. Wade, specifically wrote in his concurrence, "Please do not make any assumptions that this means we are going to overrule Obergefell v. Hodges or any other related cases." So I think it's fair to say that he's unlikely to support such a drastic overturning of precedent. That brings us down to just 4. So we already don't have enough to overturn gay marriage, by the way. But do we even have enough for the Supreme Court to rehear the case? Because you'd need all 4 to agree to do so. Well, one of those 4 is Justice Neil Gorsuch, who is much more libertarian-leaning and actually authored a major opinion expanding gay rights. So can't say for sure, but I think it's unlikely he would want to hear a challenge to gay marriage. Amy Coney Barrett? Hard to say, really. I'd put her as kind of a question mark. And then with Justice Clarence Thomas and Justice Samuel Alito, I think it's pretty clear they both would vote to rehear a challenge to gay marriage. So you have 2 votes to potentially hear that case out of the 4 you would need to actually hear it and the 5 you would need to overturn it. So I'm very confident that gay marriage, in terms of the Supreme Court precedent, is safe. That could change if a justice or 2 retire while Trump is president and he's able to replace them with people who are more socially hardcore conservative. But until that happens, I think it's pretty safe. But the influencers who are spreading all this fear porn don't actually know how politics or our system of government works, so they're just seeing that some state lawmakers somewhere passed a resolution, so gay marriage must be doomed. Here's one of those videos that honestly cracked me up.
And here we are. We told you this was going to happen, and he hasn't even been sworn in yet, and we're already seeing this. We told you that it was only a matter of time before Republicans were so emboldened that they would try to go after Obergefell v. Hodges, and they are. Now, whether you're cis or trans, this will affect you if you're in a queer relationship. For example, my partner is female and I'm recognized as female, so our marriage wouldn't necessarily be recognized everywhere.
Who wants to tell this person that even if gay marriage was overturned, their marriage would still be allowed? That's all I'll say about that one. A lot of this panic also seems to rest on some pretty bizarre misconceptions about what Donald Trump's position is on gay marriage and what exactly would even happen if the Supreme Court somehow did overturn the case establishing gay marriage. Here's one video that's interesting, I guess.
Hey, gays for Trump. How does it feel to have voted for a man that is now supporting Republican legislation that's going to make its way all the way to the Supreme Court, that's going to overrule Obergefell v. Hodges, which gave you the right to marry? How does it feel to have voted for your own demise like an absolute fucking moron? See, if you voted for Trump, I already know you're uneducated. But if you're gay, trans, a minority, and you voted for Trump, you're not uneducated. You're stupid. You're an idiot. That's the equivalent of a chicken walking into a KFC factory and applying for a job.
So they always share these old clips of Trump where he talks about being anti-gay marriage, but those are old clips. The same way you can find clips of Joe Biden and Barack Obama saying the same thing, but they later changed their view to support gay marriage. Trump actually entered office in 2016 saying he was fine with gay marriage. And in 2019, he had this to say about Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, a married gay Democrat.
We've got the town hall with Pete Buttigieg. There you go, this weekend. Just one thing on him, putting aside policy disagreements, don't you think it's just great to see the fact that you've got a guy there on the stage with his husband, and it's normal, it's not even seen as a big deal?
I think it's absolutely fine, I do.
But isn't it a sign of great progress in the country that that's just...
Yeah, I think it's great. I think that's something that perhaps some people will have a problem with. I have no problem with it whatsoever. I think it's good.
So I think it's very misleading the way they share these old clips devoid of context, the way they claim that Trump is anti-gay marriage, because guys, Trump did not support the Idaho legislation, and it's also just a resolution. It's not going to go all the way to Supreme Court because it's not an actual law. But this all also misses a pretty important point. What exactly would happen if, and again, I think this is extremely unlikely, but I could be wrong, if the Supreme Court did overturn Obergefell v. Hodges, the case that established gay marriage nationwide, what would happen next? Would gay marriage become illegal across the country? Would existing marriages be null and void? No. That's not what would happen. Why? Well, because when Biden was president, but also many Republicans joined with him and voted for this, they passed bipartisan legislation called the Respect for Marriage Act. This legislation ensures that in the pretty unlikely, I think, event that the Supreme Court did overturn gay marriage, people would still have access to gay marriage nationwide, because states would be required to respect any valid marriage license issued by a state where it was allowed, including their own state in the past. So if Obergefell was overturned, states like Idaho, for example, could choose to stop issuing new gay marriage licenses, but they'd be required to respect the ones they'd already given out, and anybody who lived in Idaho could go to another state that allows gay marriage, get married, and then come back to Idaho, and Idaho would have to respect their marriage. That's what that legislation did, and it would be very difficult to overturn that legislation, and again, Trump doesn't want to do that. He supports gay marriage. Plus, a lot of the Republicans and Democrats who passed it just a few years ago are still in Congress. Now, look, is potentially having to go out of state to get married if you're in one of a handful of red states that would probably ban it, is that ideal or great or what I support? No. Is it dystopian? Also no. And again, the whole situation is incredibly unlikely to begin with, but even the worst case scenario is not particularly bad. It's just honestly kind of disheartening to me to see how this fake panic and this misinformation spreads like wildfire on social media. And the same Democrats and liberals who lecture us about misinformation and fake news eat it up and share it and share it and share it without a hint of sensing their own irony or hypocrisy. It's really unfortunate because a lot of the people online reacting to this news seem genuinely emotionally distressed and upset about something that is not happening. And I think that that's a symptom of a much broader problem with our social media and political ecosystem that goes far beyond gay marriage. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. I do always read the comments and I love hearing what you guys have to say. Plus, make sure you subscribe. This channel and the show is growing so fast like crazy, and it's just an honor to have you guys all signed up to tune in and hear me yap every day. Make sure you hit that like button as well. And up next, we got to check in on the Democratic Party because they've apparently learned absolutely nothing. We already covered their chaotic and bizarre forum for their candidates to be DNC chair that was repeatedly disrupted over and over again by climate crazies and featured a lot of the identity politics nonsense they, if they had any sense, would have left back in the past, like in 2020. But they actually went on and had the vote and selected their DNC chair and their 3 vice chairs, and some more hilarity ensued. First, they opened up this whole ceremony with, yes, a land acknowledgement.
The Democratic National Committee wishes to acknowledge that we gather together to state our values on lands that have been stewarded through many centuries by the ancestors and the descendants of tribal nations who have been here since time immemorial. We honor the communities native to this continent and recognize that our country was built on indigenous lands and hope.
This is so cringe to me, and my philosophy on these has always been very simple. Give it back or shut up. It's just such a meaningless virtue signal to say we honor the indigenous people whose lands were stolen. How? Give it to them and be quiet or stop talking about it. You're just virtue signaling. You're doing nothing to help them. In fact, you're kind of rubbing it in their face. Then there was this whole kind of chaotic moment where they had a non-binary candidate for DNC vice chair. Ha! Gay! And it messed up their gender equity rules that they have in their elections where they have to have equal genders of candidates on each vote or something complicated. Take a listen to the DNC chair, Jamie Harrison, tying himself into pretzels trying to explain this rule.
The rules specify that when we have a gender non-binary candidate or officer, the non-binary individual is counted as neither male nor female, and the remaining 6 offices must be gender balanced. With the results of the previous 4 elections, our elected officers are currently 2 male and 2 female. In order to be gender balanced, we must elect 1 male, 1 female, and 1 person of any gender. To ensure our process accounts for male, female, and non-binary candidates, we conferred with our RBC co-chair, our LGBT caucus co-chair, and others to ensure that the process is inclusive and meets the gender balance requirements in our rules.
I've watched this multiple times. I've Googled, I've asked ChatGPT, still can't quite figure out what the heck is going on there, but I did find their rules about gender parity, and the DNC specifically orders that their officers must be as equally divided as practical according to gender, and that non-binary gender candidates and officers shall not be counted as either male or female, even though they are still male or female. So to me, that was just kind of a microcosm of how deeply ingrained a lot of this identitarian rot is in the Democratic Party. They can't even select their own leaders based on merit. They have to do it in part based on this kind of never-ending game of identity hopscotch. But here's the most telling development of the DNC selecting their new officers. The selection of a incredibly cringeworthy liberal activist named David Hogg to be one of their new vice chairs. Now, if you're a normie, you probably don't know who David Hogg is, but I unfortunately do. As somebody who's been plugged into politics for a long time, he made a name for himself because he went to the Parkland High School that was so infamously victimized by a school shooting. And he became, of course, my heart goes out to him for that experience and all the people he knows who were harmed. But he became a very prominent Democratic partisan anti-gun activist in the aftermath of that tragedy and built a career for himself in Democratic politics. But he was almost one of the most cartoonishly woke and absurd avatars on the Democratic side of online discourse. And now they're selecting him for a leadership role in their party? Let's go through some of David Hogg's greatest hits to give you a sense of who exactly this guy is. He tweeted in 2022, "If you need a license to kill deer, why don't you need one to kill humans?" He really thought he ate with that. He really thought he just solved gun violence in America. That if we just required murderers to get licenses before they could kill people, they wouldn't break the law, even though they're already breaking the law, and much more serious laws than licensing regimes. Wild stuff, but that's the caliber of the activism he brought to the gun control debate. This is another tweet from him in 2020. This is a tweet for the founders of the gun violence prevention movement, started centuries ago by almost entirely Black, brown, and indigenous LGBTQ women and non-binary people that never got on the news or in most history books. We may not know all your names, but thank you. I still have no idea what the heck he's talking about. The gun violence prevention movement started centuries ago by non-binary, indigenous, LGBTQ women, and you're so confident of this thing you made up, but you don't know the names of any of these people, apparently. So how do you know they exist? Because it doesn't sound like a thing. This is my personal favorite David Hogg tweet. He responded to a New York Post story titled, "These 3 little words are a big turn on," and he wrote, "Abolish the police." Yes, remember that thing that Democrats totally never, ever supported? Yeah, he was all in on that one. But here's my favorite David Hogg tweet, I think, because it's actually remarkably self-aware. In 2022, he wrote, "I'm one of the most politically toxic people in the country. I mean, go on. And I'm too radical for American politics. No, I'm not running for office. We have enough straight white men in power. It'd be nice to see some people who actually look like our country and not privilege. Because straight white men don't look like our country. Pretty sure there's a lot of them here, actually. Obviously, running for a position of leadership in the Democratic Party is different than running for like a governmental office like Senate or congressman, but It's not that different. If you're too politically toxic to be an elected leader of the Democrats, how are you not too politically toxic to be in charge of the party? And if you think there are enough straight white men in power, so I need to sit this one out and acknowledge my privilege, what happened to that? That was just a couple of years ago, and now you're out here taking an important leadership position that could go to a minority, POC, oppressed, indigenous, two-spirit, non-binary, sapiosexual, whatever. Like, I'm joking, but I'm also not. If you're going to talk this absurd talk, I think it's fair for us to expect you to walk the walk, which David Hogg is apparently unwilling to do. But this is about more than just this one guy. To me, it's kind of an example that the Democratic Party is not learning the right lessons, to say the very least. I mean, they had another candidate for DNC vice chair named Adam Frisch, who nearly beat Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert in 2022 in a deep red district as a rural outreach candidate. He only got 5 votes, whereas David Hogg went on to become one of the new vice chairs. So you have a rural Democrat who can appeal in a deep red district, but is still a Democrat and still liberal, or the woke activist kid who thinks indigenous LGBTQ women founded the gun control movement and that straight white men need to take a back seat and that we should abolish the police. And the Democrats went with that dude. That is not a serious party. That is not a party that wants to win, that is ready to move on from toxic identitarian radicalism and focus on bread and butter issues. And it just, to me, shows they've learned nothing and they're setting themselves up for continued failure. And honestly, I laugh at that to some extent, but I don't want that. I don't relish that. I want this country to have 2 sane, moderate parties, a center-left party and a center-right party. But that's not where we're headed. And all I can do at this point is grab some popcorn and enjoy watching the shit show, because if I don't laugh, I might cry. Up next, I've got a harsh word for some right-wing Twitter accounts today, because tell me why over the weekend some right-wing people on Twitter with massive platforms with millions of followers decided to bully a random child for engagement and clout and money from all the views they got. That is quite literally what happened, guys. Numerous right-wing Twitter influencers, including Alpha Fox, a very popular account, and the Defiant Els account, which has over 1 million followers, decided to share a video of this random 11 or 12-year-old boy to make fun of him and expose him to ridicule by their audience of millions because he dared to put on makeup on camera. I'm going to show you the video, guys, so you can see what got them so worked up.
Get ready for me to hang out with my friends. Okay, it's currently 5:24. I just got home from swim practice and I took a really fast shower, but I'm getting ready to go to my friend's house and then we're going to get Wingstop. Words can't describe how excited I am to get Wingstop. I haven't had it in so long and I'm really craving it. Yesterday we had a snow day and it barely snowed, but it did a lot of freezing rain. But it was hyped up to be this crazy storm, a really fun snowstorm, and it just didn't end up being that. Which makes me sad because it actually never snows here and it's so annoying. Anyway, I'm not planning on doing too much makeup, just a little bit. I'm going in with this Merit bronzing stick, or contour stick. It's really good. I don't know the difference between bronzer and contour, but I use them as the same because I just want to look tan. I don't really care, what the purpose is of each. I need a haircut so bad. It's insane. I'm also doing no makeup. Just gonna finish with a little bit of this Refi gloss. And then YSL Libre. Bye, guys.
Yeah, so let's get this straight. Some of the same right-wing influencers who talk about protecting the kids are now bullying a random 11-year-old boy because he put on makeup. That's not the behavior of a mature, healthy adult man. That's actually kind of sick and demented. To be clear, I don't think parents should really be letting their kids post to social media like this, because this kind of thing, and frankly much worse, can happen. My child would not be uploading videos of themselves at 11 years old and posting it to the internet for all to see. But that's just a parenting question, I guess. But even if they do, and even if that's misguided or wrong, the proper response is not to bully a random child. And guys, there's nothing wrong with a boy being feminine or with a boy putting powder on his face. If you still think that way, the 1950s called and they want their social ethics back. It's so ironic to me because the same types of right-wing people who will mock and bully a kid for being feminine like this also are really upset, and I agree with them to some extent, about the trans movement, trans and kids. But the proper response to that is, no, it's okay for young boys to be feminine, and it doesn't mean they're really girls. They don't need to be transitioned. It's okay to just be not typical, conforming to your gender norms or whatever, and be a little bit more feminine as a male or a little bit more masculine as a female. That's the message we're supposed to be pushing. But instead, you're bullying people who aren't gender conforming, but also saying that the people saying they need to change are wrong and bad and doing something evil, but you're also shaming them, not letting them be and not letting them just be themselves. The math is not mathing. And why are they doing this? Well, I have a theory, and the theory is frankly partly one of the problems with Twitter. I still use it every day. It's still such an invaluable source of news and trending videos and all of that, but I see a lot more toxic behavior and bullying and mean-spirited conduct on there than I used to, and I think that's partly because of the revenue model and the way that Elon has incentivized people. Basically, you get paid based on your impressions. So if you post rage bait or you post just like cruel things or videos of people fighting or like horrible things kind of where you can't look away, or things that divide people and get them really upset, then you can make a lot of money. That's like not a great incentive structure. It leads to this kind of behavior because while many people are criticizing these big accounts, myself included, for posting this video and bullying this random child, they're also making a lot of money from it. So are they going to listen to the criticism, or are they going to listen to the dollars flowing into their bank account? And guys, if you think they weren't bullying him, you just have to look at the comments I got when I said, stop doing this. It was some of the most insane and toxic shit I've read in a long time, and that's saying something. And this is just one example of right-wing Twitter accounts with millions of followers doing insane and irresponsible stuff with their platforms lately. A bunch of huge MAGA accounts also spread complete fake news that the pilot involved in the accident at DCA was actually a trans person. It was so bad that the random trans woman they accused of being the pilot had to post a video and be like, yes, people are accusing me of this. I'm actually still alive. Please stop. Like, it was a crazy situation. Take a look.
This is Joe Ellis. I understand some people have associated me with the crash in DC, and that is false.
Joe Ellis, a transgender military pilot in the Virginia National Guard, posted a video dispelling the rumor that she was flying the helicopter that collided with a commercial jet near Reagan National Airport on the 29th of January, thought to have killed 67 people. Hours before Joe posted her video, she shared this screenshot of an ex-post that claimed she was the pilot of the helicopter. The post read, "The pilot of the Black Hawk has been identified as Chief Warrant Officer 2 Joe Ellis, a transgender woman." This was not the case, and Joe was quick to dispel the claim, going on to say, "It's insulting to the victims and families of those lost, and they deserve better than this BS from the bots and trolls of the internet." The rumor circulated further, so much so that Joe Ellis was the second most trending topic in the United States on X late Friday morning with more than 90,000 posts, according to Trends24, a website that tracks trending topics. To dispel the rumors once and for all, Joe took to Facebook to post a video, captioning it, "Proof of Life Statement."
It is insulting to the families to try to tie this to some sort of political agenda. They don't deserve that. I don't deserve this, and I hope that you all know that I'm alive and well, and this should be sufficient for you all to end all the rumors.
Like, that's actually insane that these massive accounts, tens and thousands of posts, all blame this random trans woman, apparently based on no evidence, for the crash, and she had to be like, actually, I'm alive. Y'all just made this up. This is what I mean when I talk about right-wing Twitter. Some pockets of it are getting out of control and getting nasty and unhinged, and really need to get a grip, because this is not productive, this is not helpful, and frankly, it's just making everything worse. I appreciate Elon allowing different perspectives and controversial views and controversial accounts on the platform, but I think he's got to do something to tweak the monetization structure so that it doesn't encourage or incentivize this kind of irresponsible and cruel behavior at scale. But what do you guys think? I'd love to hear from you. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do hit that like button before you go, and make sure you're subscribed if you aren't yet. And with that, we'll talk again tomorrow.